So tonight's presentation is different than what we've done in the past. We've asked 3 experienced technical managers outside of high tech to come with us and join us and share their lessons. Very often in high tech, we get inbred, we talk to other people in high tech, and we forget that there's a lot of other engineering management outside, people that have solved different problems in different ways that can cross-fertilize our thinking. So this is also a panel discussion, not a presentation by a single individual. So let me introduce in alphabetical order our panelists. The first is Kristen Allen, who is a program manager of a San Francisco International Airport. She's managing the Terminal 1 rebuild, a $2.5 billion reconstruction activity. And she's been with San Francisco Airport for lots of years, managed 5 major capital improvement organizations. So if you want to know how do you test something that's in use, ask Kristen. She can tell you different things and different ways of doing things. Our second panelist is Leslie Battle, and Leslie works currently as a technical recruiter for Avast, which is a cybersecurity company. But she has had several roles, including managing the Network Operations Center and building it from the ground up, and a technical program manager where she maintained production environments for several products. Finally, Susan Iverson has a career a lot of places in the area of construction management. Her background is, her degree at least, is in civil engineering, but it's been construction management or related to that. So she's worked at companies like Facebook and another company we can't mention, but she was involved in their very large land-based spaceship. So she's had a lot of relevant experience. I'll turn it back over to Raphael, and each one of the panelists will take a few minutes to give some opening remarks. Raphael, back to you.
Yes, thank you, Perry. Just wanted to check with everyone. It is a panel discussion, so we really would like to have questions, but because we do have over about 23 people here, it would be preferable if you can, as you go along, type your questions in the chat. I will be monitoring that, and I'll be bringing them up to the panel's attention. So that way we don't need to be interrupting each other or leaving all the microphones on. So let's try to keep the microphones on for the panelists. And anyone else, you can put it in the chat. I can probably, if needed, maybe we can turn on your mic to say something when we're doing the question. But hopefully that will keep us organized and not have to kind of jump over each other. There's a request from Michael Kundry to do a quick announcement. So if you don't mind, I would like to open the mic to Mike.
Yeah, very quickly. Just want to announce to everybody who happens to be a IEEE Thames member that we're going to have an election for the Board of Governors, and by next week sometime, it should be on the international website, how to apply and what the qualifications are, and if you are interested, we welcome your application. That's all.
Thank you, Michael. So with that said, let's go to our panelists. Why don't we start with Susan? Just why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself first, after that nice introduction from Perry, and then just take a few minutes, and then we can pass on to Leslie and Christine.
Sure. Well, my name's Susan. I'm a civil engineer by education and have a background in construction management. Spent about 20 years in the field, oversee construction, a lot of public works, light rail, schools, community colleges, as we call them now. And just through happenstance, I kind of made a lateral move into procurement for high-tech companies. I did, as Perry alluded, work for a little fruit company over in Cupertino, and we built a fairly circular campus over there. They are notoriously possessive about their name, so we won't say it. From there, I moved into data center construction, overseeing and buying basically all the owner-furnished equipment for large-scale data centers. And then I am currently with Facebook doing very much the same thing, overseeing the mechanical, electrical purchases and installation at data centers. Predominantly, I have one in New Mexico and Alabama, but we, of course, have them worldwide. I've been fortunate enough to be able to participate in our one in Sweden and also one in Denmark. And that's about it.
Okay, why don't we go over to Leslie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie, and I've actually worked in financial technology for about 13 years. I had supervised our network operations center where we managed the production environment. I was part of some of our data center migrations that we had for some of our co-locations in the East Coast. About 7.5 years ago, I was recruited out of that company, and I joined the current company that I'm with right now. It's called Avast. We're a cybersecurity company, one of the world's largest cybersecurity company. And I was recruited to go ahead and build out our network operations center department. So in the NOC, what we do is we monitor the production environment and make sure that everything is production ready for our customers, any of our software releases, things like that, our production is working as it should be. So we do a lot of the monitoring. We only have one data center located here. Everything else is on the cloud. So I had built that department and managed that team for about 3.5 years. And then I moved over and I became a technical program manager / site reliability engineer. What I did was I was the gateway for our service level agreement for our production, for our products, I should say. And I did all of our software deployments in the production environment. I maintained our production environment as far as in any outages and things like that. And then last year, I decided to completely do something different, and I am now leading the US recruitment for our company. So I've never been in HR. All of my experience has been in tech. So this is something that's new for me, but I am the technical recruiter for Avast for all of US.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Christine?
Yes, good evening, everyone. As Perry mentioned, I work at San Francisco Airport. I've been there a number of years. I started my career as a civil engineer. I'm a licensed civil engineer in California and did a number of design projects at the airport, and then moved into project management at the airport, eventually managing a staff of approximately 20 engineers and drafters who were responsible for infrastructure improvement projects around the airport. And then about 7 years ago was assigned to a larger capital program, which was the Terminal 1 program, where I came in as one of the project managers. I'm now the program manager for that $2.5 billion program at SFO, currently supervising about 3 full-time airport project managers, as well as a consulting staff of about 50 supporting us, and then hundreds of design build team members and partners we have on site. In the peak of our construction last year, we probably had about 1,200 people working on the project in various forms. Currently, with COVID and just in the phasing of our project, we're at about 400 people, but still a very large group, a large team, and I've had some interesting experiences and good ones. And I've also thought that at times I probably should have got a psychology minor in addition to my civil engineering degree. But thus far, it's been a great experience. I'm happy to be here sharing some of my experiences and learning about your experiences. So thank you.
Okay, so I think we can go back and if we don't have any, do we have any questions from the audience? Anyone would like to get things started? Well, let me get things rolling here then. You all seem to be, as you explained, you have a lot of experience managing projects. It all comes down to managing people, basically. This is what we're talking about here. Even though they're technology, there might be construction, there might be software, doesn't really matter. But we're looking in the end that you're managing people. So, so let's say when you're hiring people into your team, so you bring them in, maybe you're not necessarily hiring, but you have to onboard those people. What are the top 2 characteristics you will look for people to join your team, or if in case you're hiring for the applicants, that will be that will make your team most effective? What is it that you're looking for when you're hiring those people into your team? And you have a variety of projects. So why don't we start with Christine?
Sure. Yeah. I think someone that fits in with our culture. It's an important aspect of our philosophy at SFO and our culture and our collaboration and partnering. So we need people with the right technical background, but there's a wide variety of people with the right technical background, but to get the right personality and the right that will blend with our culture, blend with our staff, and not the same as everybody. We're really looking for diversity in our group. We get the most out of that. Diversity in background, diversity in technical skills, all aspects, but really it's communication, ability to communicate, and complement the rest of the team.
So what are those elements of that culture? How would you define your culture, the one that you want people to mesh in? What is it about that culture?
We're a family, really. Yeah, I mean that's the way we do formal partnering on our projects. However, that's just lays the framework of what we call partnering sessions are a 1 hour a month session, but partnering is a lifestyle for us. It's about the way we interact with each other. It's about how we communicate. And that the problems are the project problems, that it's always got to be the project problems. So we're looking for people that communicate well. We're looking for people that can have that sort of energy and become part of a team and want to be on a team and help make the team better.
So you mentioned the word partnering, like there's some kind of process or you have some meetings and that. I haven't really heard that.
Yeah,
that's news for me. See, what does that entail? I mean,
yeah, there's a whole organization called IPI, which is the International Partnering Institute, where a lot of the construction industry is starting to buy into this philosophy, and we've been doing it for a while at SFO. But really, it sets the framework, the groundwork for your team, for how you interact. You develop an escalation ladder in the partnering. So you try to always push decisions to the lowest level and give people permission to be leaders when it's time to be a leader. But you also allow them a way out when things aren't working and how in a time frame around escalating that. So our partnering is a number of things. It's about making commitments to each other, to our team. It's about following up on those commitments, and we do a monthly scorecard to see how we're doing on those commitments. So all of those things come back to our culture and the way we want to work with each other.
Well, thank you. I never heard about that, so this is really new to me. Really something I need to look into.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of industries would benefit from this sort of idea of the partnering and how we all work together as a team. And you have groups of people that come together for maybe a year, 2, 3, 4 years at a time. They come in and then they leave. So you have to be able to quickly develop a strategy and a goal together as a group. And partnering helps us do that.
Okay, let me move on to some of the other panelists. There are other questions flowing in from the audience, so I'll address them. But let me give a chance for for Susan and Leslie. Susan?
Did you have a particular question you wanted?
Yeah, the same one. Okay. I mean, what do you look for in people to join your team? What are those characteristics or traits?
Well, it's interesting. At Facebook, we probably reject more people based on a poor cultural fit than on technological abilities and so forth. Facebook has a very, I won't say distinct, but a very different culture than I've worked in before. I've worked in construction for 20 years. Owners have a reputation for being basically aggressive and difficult, and contractors have a reputation for being, sneaky and just out to make a buck. And it's a very combative. Historically, it can be a very combative relationship. Facebook approach is very different. We strongly partner with our GCs. If they make a mistake, we're very, how can we work through this together? We don't beat them up with their mistakes. We probably pay them for more of the mistakes than we really should. But we have the luxury because we want to develop the really strong teamwork. Collaboration is a very, very strong at Facebook culture, cross-functional collaboration within our own teams. So we're really looking for someone who can set aside maybe what was the previous norm at their job, in their companies and in their experience, and truly be able to embrace kind of the style of Facebook, which can be a little bit of a culture shock, especially coming from a completely different company as I did, which was well known for beating up their contractors and holding their feet to the fire. So definitely that ability to adapt and to be able to read the culture and understand it.
Oh, thank you. Leslie, any thoughts? What are the traits that you look for in the people to join your team? And now that you're in that function, I think it's more relevant.
Yeah, so I definitely would have to echo what Kristen and Susan have said. I think at Avast, culture fit is probably one of the biggest things that we look at. There's a lot of people who have the same technical background, but when you have, let's just say, a group of 10 people who have made it into the interview process, I think one of the things that we're looking for is culture fit, because to us that's a lot more important than some of the technical aspect. The technical things can be learned most of the time, whereas culture fit is not something that can be really learned. Either you fit in or you don't. So some of the things that are important to us as far as in culture fit, we're a company that likes to give back to the community. So we're looking for people who are, who have hobbies outside of work, that their work isn't consuming them. So we like to take a look at what people like to enjoy outside of work, not to make sure that they fit into the same hobbies as what we have, but really more so that we're looking for people who can bring some interesting knowledge or perspective into our company. I think that helps provide some of the diversity by some of the things that they do outside of work. So as far as in other things that are important, communication is definitely important for many different reasons. We talk to a lot of the Fortune 500 companies, and so being able to represent our company in the best way possible is definitely something that we're looking for. Someone that can collaborate, because in program management, you're working with so many different cross-functional teams and international teams that you need to be able to collaborate. So that's listening, being able to communicate, effectively communicate. We have, I think at Avast, we have a very unique culture. It's kind of one of those, we're in this crossroad where we're not we have a startup mentality where we like to have a lot of fun, but then we have the financial backing of a mid-sized company. So that's why, for us, culture is very important.
Thank you, Leslie. We have a couple more questions. Let me start with you because they're also related. So this is about finding jobs are not engineering necessarily, they're non-technical people. This area is saturated with technology jobs. How do you find and retain non-technical people for your positions? Let's start with you, Leslie.
Sure. So how do we retain non-technical people for our positions? One of the things that we do is we do a lot of training. So we have some external speakers that come in. For example, and the external speakers that we bring in, it's both for hard skills and for soft skills as well. So it's making sure that, you know, everyone has some form of training. So it's bringing in external speakers. We have a mentorship program. So for example, if you're in HR and you want to go into project management, then you can pair up with one of our project manager leaders, and you can learn the skills that way. We also have online courses. So some of the courses that we have it through Gartner, we have it through Coursera, but online courses. So, you know, trying to retain the non-technical people for those positions, you know, making sure that they have a career path, I think is also very important.
Thank you, Leslie. Same question, Christine. How about, if you're trying to hire non-technical people, how do you find and retain them?
So you need to have some sort of technical background, you know, whether it's in construction management, in engineering, in architecture, something. And I think one of the challenges in our industry, for my industry, and I imagine it's similar in all technical fields, is that, the best engineers don't make the best managers, don't make the best leaders. And being able to find the people that have had that success on the technical side and have the inherent ability to translate it into a leadership role is challenging, because the natural next step for someone from a promotion standpoint would be into a leadership management role, managing the team of engineers, and sometimes the best engineer is not the best person for that role. And so being able to really understand that and looking for that is important. And we as engineers, and I'll speak as an engineer because technically I am one still, normally don't have the great skills for leadership, for management. We like to get in the weeds. We like to dig in and get into technical details, and it's not what you need to do as a leader and a manager. So it's hard to pull away from that. But finding that is a challenge.
Any thoughts on that, Susan?
I think probably if we're looking for basically non-technical people to manage technical roles, I think again it comes down a lot to the personality, and also to understanding what that team needs from you. If it's not a technical lead, whether it's if you need someone who's good at working with the leadership of other groups to come up with a process or provide run interference or advocate for a position in that group. I think that's the key to finding or deciding what you need. And I think as far as finding and retaining them is you have to understand how that skill set you're looking for is used in other industries, and not be afraid to go out to other industries and find it. My leadership team is very diverse. We have ex-military, we have people who came from gas and oil and things like that. So it's really understanding how that skill set's used in other industries.
I see. So I'm just going to keep going down the questions here. So I think I'll stay with you, Susan, on this one. In this work from home era, how do you manage?
It has really been interesting. My role at Facebook, I actually traveled quite a bit, and so we didn't always. Although you had FaceTime with people in the office, it wasn't always FaceTime with the managers or people, and so forth. So we had some ability already. We video called a lot. We had, flexible. We could work from home if we wanted, to some extent, and we traveled a lot. So we all had to be pretty good at, communicating in other ways than face to face. COVID obviously brought that to a whole nother level. We try to engage as much as we can. We have informal kind of no purpose meetings where, and we try to keep it to 6 to 8 people, because we originally tried it with our whole 40-person team and that didn't work so well. So 6 to 8 people, no specific agenda, just like, how are you doing? Tell me about what your dog did today, type of thing. Really just trying to keep that water cooler atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And Facebook has about 18 different ways to communicate, and sometimes we do it really badly. We have our workplace app, we have chat, we have email, we have video, we have everything. And so the other thing we've tried to do is kind of pare it down and kind of define, okay, emails are a little bit more formal. If somebody chats you, try and chat them back fairly quickly, even if it's just to say I'm not available right now. Go ahead and use the video calls, even if it's just for a quick question. Try and keep it as interpersonal as much as possible. It's interesting because our Facebook is really a company about trying to keep people connected, and we have found it to be very challenging, even with all the functionality we have to do it. So I'm hoping we get to go back to the office at some point.
Yes. How about you, Leslie? How are you managing work from home?
So I'll come at this from the recruitment perspective. So before, the whole COVID thing happened, I was working from home a lot anyway, because I don't need to be in the office to do any of my phone screens or anything like that. All I'm doing is just really taking up a conference room. So I was really only going into the office whenever I had on-site interviews, or whenever I had meetings with my hiring managers. But how this has kind of changed now that, we're working from home from a recruitment perspective, now we have to do all of our interviews through video. And so the first kind of couple go-arounds of working from home, we had people interrupting the current interview going on. So it was really coming up with a process quickly so that we can still continue the momentum of the interview process. So that's one of the things that kind of has changed working from home from a recruitment perspective. I think, on a general work level, I think that how we're able to manage working from home, it's just making sure that, you have the appropriate tools, whether it's Zoom. We use Slack as our primary form of communication. I'm definitely seeing less emails, between the different departments. It's a lot more of our communication on Slack or on Zoom. So interestingly enough, I probably see more faces now that we're working from home than I did when we were in the office.
I see.
Because before it was just all Slack or email.
Christine, what's your experience now? How do you build an airport working from home?
Thank God I don't have to actually pick up a tool, because it'd be really hard. But so we, it's been interesting, just the nature of what we do. We probably spent 10 to 15% of our time at our actual desks anyways. So, but most of the time we'd be in meetings. So now instead of being in a conference room with people in a meeting, we're sitting at our desk at home in a meeting, which, has had some pluses and minuses to it. But overall, generally worked out. As far as a construction site, we do have to go out there for things on the construction. So, you know, it's up to the team to make their smart decisions on what walks they need to be on and what site visits, what coordination. We are very supportive of people not gathering, of people staying at home. And you know, working for the airport, which is a department of the city of San Francisco, I am an employee of the city of San Francisco. And for years, people were trying to request telecommuting, you know, authority and being able to do that. And it got denied. And it's funny now because we're being told, do not come to work. So it's been a big shift, but I think what they've found is people have been, at least our team, you know, in our group has been very effective at what we need to do. And like both Susan and Leslie said, you know, checking in with people. I do, you know, just kind of sometimes just a random check-in. How you doing? How are things going at home? Are your kids driving you crazy yet? You know, this just with the team and making sure people are still engaged in some way. But it has been a different experience, but overall it's gone much better than I thought it would.
Oh, good to hear. Earlier you mentioned, now that I have you here, there's a question for you. You mentioned the psychology is a skill you would like to have. What are some other skills that would have helped you in your career? And again, let's start with Christine.
You know, I think when I go way back in time and thinking about my decision to become an engineer, I loved solving problems. I loved math and science and all those things that led me into the field. And I always saw myself as a designer, as an engineer. And it's a little interesting how our careers evolve and change and what we become interested in. I never want to go back to being a designer. I have no desire at all to do that. And I guess what I would have liked to, what might have been nice to know earlier is that be open to those sort of things, that evolution of the career is a good thing. It's not bad. It keeps it from getting stagnant. So as far as skills, I think probably just a little more on management of people. You know, that's not what we're taught in engineering school. So, you know, but you learn, you grow, you evolve. We are offered a number of training courses and readily available to us, but really it's just experiencing something, I think, is really where you learn. You have to do it. And maybe that's my Cal Poly background of learn by doing, but you know, that is the important thing is that the experience to gather those skills for me.
Thank you. Any other panelists have any thoughts on that? What skills or you wish you have acquired earlier?
It's interesting you talk about being a design engineer. I literally in college chose to go into construction management because, quote, I did not want to spend all day in front of a computer. So, yeah, hindsight is everything. But I think to Kristen's point, being open to explore different aspects of what you can do with your you know, I say degree, but really with your interest and your training. You know, I never thought I would land in procurement, but you know, I have an MBA also, and I was raised by accountants, so it turns out that, you know, buying things is kind of second nature. The other aspect that I would say managing people is not my favorite thing. I'm more than willing to be an IC the rest of my life. I don't need the prestige of being a manager. But probably if you are going to manage people, my skill I wish I'd had was being better at figuring out how else we could use their skill set. Much like looking to myself for like, okay, what else can I do with my skill set? Is identifying, you know, more avenues for other people's skill sets as well. And I think that probably would have made me a much better manager. I don't think I was the best manager in the world.
Leslie, any thoughts?
Just to add, I think, you know, one of the skills that I wish I had earlier on in my career is probably listening skills. The thing is, you know, I had worked in a predominantly male team, and so I always felt like I had to kind of make sure that my feedback or my opinions or my thoughts were heard. So instead of doing some listening, I was always trying to do some of the talking. And as I kind of grew into my career, I think that my listening skills had gotten better. But I think, you know, especially when I was managing my own team, that was definitely something that was very important. And that would have been a skill that I wish I would have learned earlier on.
Well, thank you. So we'll do here a shameless plug. Actually, Michael Kundry is reminding us the reason why TEMS was created, Technology Engineering Management Society, is really to bring those opportunities to learn, acquire those skills, and hear from people like you who've gone through it, and now you can reminisce and tell us what are the kind of things that we should need to look into to develop ourselves as managers. So that's the purpose, that's the reason of being of our organization. So stop, shameless plug right there. So let's move on to another question we have. Again, let's start with Christine. What do you find what is the optimal time horizon for planning your team's work? And we understand you have a very unique situation when you're working at the airport, but do you look at things like at the day basis or months, years? I mean, what's the optimal for you in your line of work?
All of it.
At the same time?
You know, it depends on what we're talking, you know, on the construction standpoint, we're obviously looking at long-term milestones, but looking at immediate next 60 days. For our teams, you know, we try to mirror what's happening with our project. So we want to make sure that we are well resourced for what the peaks and valleys of what's happening. You know, so it's an interesting question. I'm not sure how to answer it, I guess. We are pretty set because of city department and city rules and city, you know, so we have not a lot of flexibility in some aspects of this. So, you know, it's kind of a harder question for me to probably answer, just because we are a little locked in with how we have to operate.
Yes. Susan, any thoughts?
Sure. So we typically, as an organization for data center, we have a 5-year, a 3-year, and a 1-year. What we refer to as capacity planning. Basically, how much data center processing space are we going to need? It was kind of amusing. Before COVID, we kind of had a projection. It was aggressive, but we're like, okay, we can do it. COVID hit, and suddenly our projections were thrown out the window because they needed to double and triple in some cases. So what we're working on now is, you know, will our 5-year projections stay the same? Are we just moving our capacity need back? Or is it basically jumping up and it can continue from there? So we figure our 5-year plan is 10 to 20% accurate, and we try to get our 1-year plan 75% to 90% accurate. I'd say this year we missed badly, but you really can only, you know, plan for so many unknowns. So we kind of do that, and then we every 6 months we relook at every plan, the 1-year, the 3-year, and the 5-year.
Thank you. Leslie.
Yeah, so this is where I think project planning is going to be something that's really important. Whenever we whenever we meet with our partners, and from a software perspective, if we need to add any new features, we work with our product managers to develop a roadmap Once we have that roadmap, then that's when we really start looking at how we can best come up with our plan or our timeline. So once we have a good idea of what our roadmap is, it's really going in there, coming up with a project plan, taking a look at our budget, our resources, breaking up the feature into different tasks, and really collaborating with our team to determine, how long, we think some of these things are going to take. But definitely coming up with a project plan is how we determine the optimal time for our plans.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience has any more questions? We still have a few minutes left. So everyone is muted. You can type. Okay, let me try this. Susan, what would you like to ask Leslie?
Well, I actually know Leslie pretty well.
Okay, how about Christine?
But one thing interesting, because she kind of took a sidestep and went into HR, I'm curious. I kind of stepped sideways in my career also. Is it something you think you'll have longevity in, or is it kind of a break and a diversion, or are you surprised, or if you like it?
So that's probably the one thing that I'd love to share with the team. So when I had sidestepped into HR, it was really more so for personal family reasons. I definitely didn't think this was going to be something that was going to be long term. I always thought I was going to go back into program management, if anything on the operational side of things, which is what I did before I transitioned into HR. But now that I'm in it, I actually really like it. I feel like I have a bigger impact on the company, and I can help shape the company more so than I was able to do when I was a program manager. And part of that is because I can, bring in, I have a say in the talent that comes in through the door, which can help, shape our company. So the one, thing that I wanted to share with everyone is just be open. You never know where your career is gonna take you. And it might actually be something that's, something that you would have never guessed you would have ever done, but has been a complete fun ride and adventure.
Thank you. Christine, you have a question for Susan?
Sure. Either Leslie or Susan want to jump in on this one, but one of the things that transitioning through my career from the technical side to the more management side, challenges I've had is just resisting that urge to just do it yourself, right? And getting people, turning over the reins to people and letting them, take over something and stepping back and keeping that strategic vision and not so much into the details. And I'm just wondering if you've experienced that, and if you have any tips or things that either of you have done that might be beneficial.
What I was saying earlier about being better at identifying how people's skills could be used in other roles, that was, I think you put it better in I need to get out of their way and let them just do it. I'm very much a type A personality. I think a lot of us in engineering are. Many times we think it's easier to do it ourselves than to explain to somebody what we want. But I think you're right. It's 1,000% a skill that we need to lead and not push. I had to phrase that. the best tool I've found in trying to deal with that is finding tasks that I know that I can't do, and then, you know, basically trying to do them. You know, maybe it's an empathy thing, but, you know, if I've given someone something and I'm not letting go of the reins, you know, I try to take on something that I know I'm not going to be good at. Maybe it's just it diverts my attention and I let them do it. Maybe it creates some empathy in me. I don't know, but that's the best trick I found. It's ironic to me that I'm talking to EEs because that is my most challenged discipline of all the disciplines I do. You know, concrete, talk about all day. Mechanical, I'm pretty decent with. Electrical still confounds me every day. So,
what is so challenging to you? Tell us more about it.
You can't see it. You cannot see electricity. And that, I had an electrician once tell me, it's the only thing you work with that you can't see until it kills you. So maybe I'm also a little scared of it. I struggle conceptualizing it. I'm very much a, you know, give me some steel, give me some wood, give me concrete. I can, you know, figure it out all day. Give me a circuit and I have no idea. Which makes it very amusing to me that I spend millions of dollars on switchgear and switchboards and you know, everything. And one thing I was taught actually by a superintendent in the field. You know, being a woman in construction, you get a lot of different attitudes. I worked with a contractor who I could ask him anything and he never made me feel stupid. And so I have gotten to the point where if I ask a question and you make me feel stupid, it's on you, not on me. There's no reason you should ever be ashamed to ask a question. People say there are no stupid questions. I have heard a lot of stupid answers though, but I agree there's really no stupid question.
Oh, thank you. Christine, what's your experience with our profession?
She just read my mind.
Tell us about it. We have a
But
couple
we're both
minutes.
civil engineers, so I totally agree. I just remember in college, electrical, having to take a circuits theory class and just going, what in the world? Why? So, yeah, no, totally on board.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Last words, Leslie. We're actually at the end of our time here, so I just want to give you the last words.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on what's already been said, I think, you know, in the beginning, it always seems like it's easier if you just go ahead and do things yourself because you can do it better, you can do it faster. But I think as you go into management, one of the things is really understanding that you're now in a supportive role. You're leading by supporting your team. Part of that support is letting them do, you know, handing over some of the reign to them so that they can also grow in their career. So for me, that was, you know, that's one tip that I would give is, you know, as you go into management, just remember that you're leading by supporting your team's growth.
Well, thank you very much. We've come at the end of our time. There's still a few questions on the chat. I just want to bring them up quickly, but I'm not going to ask you to answer because we need to wrap up. So everyone knows they got heard. Some people are asking how to transition into management without bringing in technical baggage that may or may not help on the way. As engineers, we hone our problem-solving, quantitative skills at the cost of developing subjective and critical analysis skills. This is a fair assessment. That's it. So thank you very much to our panelists.